Today we have some 8th graders from Kennedy Middle School and some 5th graders from Brown School, and they are all studying Greek and Roman mythology. Long ago, the ancient Greeks believed that the gods and goddesses lived on top of beautiful Mount Olympus. Zeus was the king of the gods, and Hera was his queen. Now perhaps you're thinking, that was a long time ago. We don't have to worry about gods anymore. Well, what about Poseidon, the god of the sea? He was the one who caused great storms, and he was also known as the earth shaker. Perhaps we haven't been paying enough attention to Poseidon this fall. Today I would like to tell you one of the hero stories. You could start the story anywhere, but the place that I like to start it begins on a desolate mountain in Greece. An old man was walking up the mountain carrying a little baby in his arms. The name of the baby was Jason, and his father was Aeson, the king of the city of Iolcus. And at that time, the brother of Aeson, Peleus, had stolen the throne, and it was very dangerous for Jason to live with his father. So they took the baby to a desolate mountain where lived the centaur Chiron. Now, some of the centaurs were wild, crazy creatures. You know, they were half man and half horse, and they caused a great deal of trouble, except for Chiron. He was a great teacher. He was the one who taught all of the heroes of ancient Greece how to shoot with bows and arrows, how to ride horseback, the secrets of medicine, and the secrets of ruling other men. And it was Chiron who was to be Jason's teacher as well. Jason learned from his teacher, and when he grew to be 20 years old, he was told that he should go back and claim his father's kingdom. So Jason said goodbye to the centaur and walked down the mountain. He came to a great wide river, and he was about to wade across it when from nowhere he saw an old woman appear. And she said, "Please, young man, could you carry me across the river?" And Jason said, "I will do so gladly." She was so small, she would just be a bag of bones. He put her on his shoulder. But as he walked across the river, she seemed to get heavier and heavier. When he reached the other side of the river, there was no old woman, but a tall, beautiful goddess. "I am Hera, the queen of all the gods and goddesses," she said, "and you have been kind to me. I will protect you for the rest of your life." And she disappeared. Well, Jason walked right into the city of Iolcus, but it was strange. Everyone was staring at him and pointing at him. They were pointing at his feet. You see, while he was wading across the river, one of his sandals had been caught in the bottom of the river, and now he was only wearing one sandal. Jason didn't know that it was prophesied that King Peleus would be destroyed by a man wearing one sandal. Jason appeared before King Peleus and said, "I am the son of Aeson, the rightful king of the city, and I am here to claim the city as my own." Pelias thought for a moment, and he said, "Well, I will be glad to give you back the city of Iolcus. However, you must earn it first. What do you think you should do in order to earn the city?" And Jason remembered a story that Chiron had told him. There were twins. The boy's name was Phrixus, and the girl's name was Helle. And they were about to be killed by their father and their stepmother, when suddenly their mother, who was a goddess, sent a golden ram to save them. It came flying down out of the sky, and the little children, Phrixus and Helle, jumped onto the ram, and they held on tight to the golden fleece, and the ram flew away, sailing over the Mediterranean. They held on as tightly as they could, but Helle became frightened, and she let go of the ram, and she fell into the water. And the place where she landed today is called the Hellespont. But Phrixus continued to fly on with the ram over the Black Sea till he came to the land of Colchis. And there he landed and was greeted by the barbarian king Aeetes. And together they sacrificed the golden ram to Zeus in thanks for saving Phrixus. And the fleece of the golden ram was hung in an oak tree, guarded by a dragon who never slept. Phrixus was killed by King Aeetes. And Jason said to Pelias, "All right, I will bring the golden fleece back to Greece." Well, now that he decided to do that, he knew he would need a great ship. So he had the finest shipbuilder of the time, a man named Argus, build a ship the likes of which had never been seen before. It would require 50 oarsmen, and the prow of the ship was made of a magical oak tree, and the prow could talk and give advice to the sailors aboard the ship. This was to be a great expedition, to bring the golden fleece back to Greece, and on board the ship, Jason was convinced he should have the greatest heroes of all of Greece. So he set out the word, and the people who came, why, there was Heracles, the strongest man known. He came bringing his page, Hylas, and there was Orpheus, a wonderful musician, the son of the god Apollo. And there were the twin sons of the god of the north wind and many other heroes. At last it was time for the ship to set sail. They called the ship the Argo. But the ship was so big and heavy, they couldn't get it from the beach into the water. And the talking prow said, "Let Orpheus play on his lyre." And the musicians strummed a few chords, and the Argo slipped into the Mediterranean, and the voyage began. Oh, they had many incredible adventures as they sailed on to Colchis. They landed on a strange island, and there was a king that invited them to come and eat. But the king was blind and thin as a rail. "My goodness," said Jason, "what is the matter with the king?" And the servant said, "He has been cursed by Zeus, and he cannot eat. Whenever food is spread before him, strange harpies from the sky fly down, harpies with the face of women and the bodies of vultures. They take all the food away from the king." "Well, let's see," said the two sons of the king, of the god of the north wind. "We have wings, we have swords. Bring on the harpies." They spread out the food, and as soon as the feast began, from the sky the clouds of harpies darkened the horizon, but the two sons of the north wind flew up with their swords and drove the harpies away. And the king had his first meal in 5 years. And he said to Jason, "I will tell you something that you must watch out for. as you sail on toward Colchis. As you come to the beginning of the Black Sea, there are two rocks that will come crashing together and going apart. And it is very difficult, if not impossible, to sail through these rocks. What you must do is you must take a dove and let the dove fly. And as soon as the rocks have clashed after the dove and are springing apart, row as fast as you can. And I believe that the ship will get through the clashing rocks. Jason thanked the king for his advice, and the king thanked Jason for helping to drive away the harpies. And the Argo sailed on. It came to the beginning of the Black Sea. And sure enough, there were the two great clashing rocks that some call the Symplegades. And they came together and went apart, and came together and went apart. And Jason took the dove and let it go. And the dove just made it through the rocks, just as they clashed together and started to go apart, and that was the signal for all of the oarsmen aboard the Argo to row as hard as they could, and they just managed to get through before the rocks clashed one more time, missing the rudder of the Argo by that much. And they went on, rowing along the Black Sea. It began to get a bit boring, so Jason challenged Heracles to a rowing match, and they both rowed as hard as they could. Of course, Jason became exhausted long before Heracles. He fainted at the oars, and Heracles noticed that he had broken his oar. "We have to stop," said Heracles. "I must get a new oar." So they went onto an island, and Heracles took his page, Helas, with him. And Helas left Heracles to cut down a great tree and wandered him out on the island. He came to a pool of water. There dwelt a beautiful water nymph. She looked up and saw Helas and called to him and pulled him beneath the water. When it was time to go, Heracles called out, "Helas! Helas!" He could not find him. And he saw signs at the edge of the pool that Helas was gone forever, and he began to rage and scream as he ran from one direction of the island to the other. And the men aboard the Argo were afraid that he had gone mad. Heracles had gone mad once before and had killed his wife and children, so they decided that they must leave Heracles on the island. If anyone could take care of himself, it was Heracles. And they went on and on along the Black Sea till they came to the land of Colchis, where the golden fleece was kept. They hid the Argo in a secret cave, and all the men marched up to the palace of the barbarian king, Aeetes. Everyone stared at the Greeks. They looked quite different from the people of Colchis. And on the throne was the bearded, dark King Aeetes. He was the son of Helios, the god of the sun, and he knew magic. Standing next to Aeetes was his daughter, Medea. She also knew magic. She was a witch and an enchantress, and she worshipped Hecate, the goddess of the crossroads and witchcraft. As soon as Medea saw Jason, she fell in love with him and vowed that she would help him no matter what he asked for. Of course, Jason demanded the golden fleece. That was what he was there for. And King Aeetes said, "You have 3 tasks before you. First, you must harness the 2 fire-breathing bulls with hooves of iron and horns of gold. Then you must sow the dragon's teeth. And then you must get the golden fleece away from the dragon who never sleeps. Well, Jason went back to where the Argo was beached to confer with his friends, and Medea went to the temple of Hecate. And in her cauldron, she threw magical herbs, and she cast a spell so that Jason would be bewitched by her. And Jason came to the temple in the middle of the night, and Medea said, I will help you. I will do anything to get you what you want. I will give you a magical salve that will keep the fire-breathing bulls from burning you. And she told him other secrets that would help him succeed. The next morning, everyone was out to see Jason harness the fire-breathing bulls. All of the people from Colchis were there, and all of the Argonauts too, to watch. He strode forth, unafraid. And they opened the pen, and out came the fire-breathing bulls, but the fire did not burn Jason. He took the great yoke and harnessed the bulls and plowed the field and sowed the dragon's teeth. The dragon's teeth went down into the ground, and from the ground rose an army of men with swords and shields, and the whole army of men charged at Jason. But he had listened to Medea. He took a great rock and threw it into the midst of the men, and they began fighting each other until they were all destroyed. Then Jason went to get the golden fleece that was hanging in the oak tree. The whole area glowed with a golden light, and with him was Medea and Orpheus. They walked up to the tree. The dragon who never sleeps reared up his head, and Medea cast a spell on him. Play, Orpheus, she said. And Orpheus strummed on his lyre until the dragon fell asleep. And then Jason reached up in the oak tree and took down the beautiful golden fleece. And Medea said, I must go with you. I must go with you back to Greece, for I have betrayed my father. So they all went back to the Argo, and they pushed the Argo back out into the Black Sea, and they began to sail home. But look, said Medea, there is my father, King Aeetes, with his great fleet. It is much more powerful than the Argo. They will overtake us. I must think of a plan. The ships of Colchis were surrounding the Argo. They were so close that Medea could reach over, and she grabbed her brother by the hand, and she pulled him on board the Argo, murmuring to herself to save Jason. For Jason, she took a sword and she killed her brother, and she chopped him into pieces, and she dropped the pieces overboard into the water, knowing that her father must stop to pick up the pieces of his son for a proper burial. The Argo sailed on, but no one would speak to Medea. She had done such a terrible thing. They were convinced she was an evil witch, and the prow of the ship said, only the enchantress Circe can lift the curse on Medea. So the Argo sailed to the island of the enchantress Circe, who was the aunt of Medea. And Jason and Medea went aboard on Circe's island. Circe looked into their eyes and knew that she must lift the curse from Medea. And she performed many spells. And at last the gods looked favorably once again upon the Argo and the Argonauts. And then the ship sailed back to Iolcus. When Jason and all of the other sailors walked into the city, they'd been gone so long People had almost forgotten them. But when Jason showed the fleece of the golden ram to Pelias, Pelias said, "All right, the city is yours." And then they brought out an old, old man. It was Aeson, the father of Jason. "Father," said Jason, "you are about to die. Medea, can you do nothing to restore my father's youth?" "I will try," said Medea. And she flew off in her chariot pulled by 2 dragons. She was gone for 9 days and 9 nights, gathering the magical herbs that she would need. And she cast them into her cauldron. It bubbled up, and before Jason and Aeson, she took a dead bough of a tree, and she plunged it into the cauldron, and the leaves of spring appeared upon it. And then she slit a vein in Aeson's neck and drained all his old blood out. And she poured into his veins her magic elixir, and his white hair turned black, and he was a man in the power of middle age. Now the daughters of Pelias had been watching this, and they said to Medea, "Our father is very old. Could you do the same for him?" "I will teach you," said Medea. And she made another kettle, and into it she threw some herbs. And she took an old ram, and she cut it into pieces, and she threw the pieces into the kettle and pulled out a bleating white lamb. "Now," said Medea to the daughters of Pelias, "you do as I did." But she had not put all of the herbs into the kettle. So when the daughters of Pelias tried to restore their father's youth, they did nothing but kill him. And everyone cursed Medea as a witch. And Medea and Jason lived on in Corinth. And at last Jason loved Medea no longer and took a new wife. And Medea killed her. And then she flew off in her chariot pulled by dragons. And she was never seen in Greece again. But Jason, he sat on the beach outside of Corinth, old now, and there was the shadow of the Argo, and he thought of all of the wonderful adventures he had had, and a piece of the talking prow fell off the ship and killed him. And that was the end of Jason, but it was not the end of the story. For the stories go on and on. Those are just some of the stories of the heroes of ancient Greece. There are many stories, of course, about all of the heroes who went along with Jason, about Heracles and about Orpheus. And then there are older stories about Theseus. And then there are many stories of the heroes who came after the Argo, the heroes of the Trojan War, such as Hector and Achilles, and then Aeneas, who sailed from Troy to found the city of Rome.